Hello everyone and welcome back aboard the night train for part 3 in this Peco Rail 200 competition build and, crucially, the big reveal. Last time I went about shaping the cliff, but there was still quite a way to go to get it actually looking like a cliff. It's been really difficult condensing hours and hours of modelling footage into a suitable sort of bite-sized video covering everything that I've done on this little module. And I was working right up until the very day of the deadline on the 30th of September, and very close to the end I actually made an almost fatal mistake that would have seen my layout just completely removed from competition. Enough waffling, here's how I went about getting the layout ready to submit, and crucially, how I managed to save it just in time. With the filler dry, I scoured the surface with a wire brush to carve in the layers and surface detailing, just to roughen it up and make it look more rock-like. To split up all of the laid filler into clearer zones, I covered the flatter areas in the same brown paint I used to paint a soil underlay on other parts of the layout. Then I began painting the rock face itself with Revel acrylic earth brown paint. I picked out the embedded, fossilised engine bodies with some dark Humbrol acrylic grey to try and balance out how well they blended in with having them stand out at the same time. It was a bit of a delicate balance. Painting up the cliff face took many layers, a lot of tidying up and a lot of filling in of finer gaps, cracks and nooks that meant perfecting it became a minor, distracting obsession in itself. With the rocks and grassy areas defined, I then covered the brown flat spaces with static grass to blend the scenery already onto the board with the cliff face. Using some black Humbrol acrylic paints, I then added the coal seam to the cliff face between the two loco layers. I also used the black paint to black out the exposed engine cabs as some filler and wood were still visible through them. I then began adding the vegetation, using a mix of Jarvis bushes and lichen. I tried to position these strategically to cover any imperfections and to blend different sections of the diorama together. The Woodland Scenic static grass glue was a great option for getting these stuck securely and easily. With the board coming together, I went back to work on some of the scenic details, starting with the coupling rod tree that needed static grass applied to it. While this concept was good in principle, in execution I just couldn't get the effect or result I was looking for. No matter how I tried to apply additional glue, cover gaps or flesh it out, I just wasn't happy with how the tree ended up. So I made the decision to leave it off the final board in case it hindered rather than benefited the overall scene. I got an old brake van body while ordering some spare locomotive parts, so decided to paint this up and stick it down as a derelict grounded body. I primered it and gave it a base coat of wood brown paint. While it dried, I painted up some vacuum brake pipes in green to have them resemble horsetails or unfurling ferns. I also gathered some spare buffers and began painting these up as mushrooms. I painted some brown and others red to resemble classic toadstools. I also weathered up some spare wagon axles to resemble abandoned, rusty ones left in the old siding. Going back to the brake van in my rotating production line, and I gave it a grey roof. Then the brake pipes received some darker green banding using Revel acrylic paints. The brake van then received a rusty layer of weathering powder all over, and then some dark wood weathering to age up the appearance even more. Using a piece of guitar string and white paints, I added the spots to the red buffer toadstools. Meanwhile, on the board I used some Woodland Scenics concrete pigment diluted in water to pick out highlights on the cliff face, to help add resemblances of crevices where soil had been washed in by rain and other flows going down the cliff. With time really against me, I got all of the details stuck down on the board, and then made my almost fatal mistake. I stuck some foliage atop the cliff, completely forgetting that there was a height restriction. I then went about adding foliage around the other added details. The height revelation dawned on me while I was at work one day, the day before the deadline in fact. So when I got home I ripped all the foliage off the top of the cliff with little time to design some alternative decor. I then feverishly checked the height along the cliff's length to make sure the 140mm limit wasn't breached at all. Thankfully, the highest point, minus the foliage, was just on the cusp and brushing up against this limit. It was within though, that was the main thing. With little time left, I removed the tape from the track ends, gave them a quick clean, and then set about taking my photos for the competition form. And here is the final result. Positioned with some photographic back scenes and some rolling stock to complete the theme I was going for. Peco do not count any rolling stock in their judgment process, so I had to submit photos without anything on the boards. Which is a shame, as the choice of rolling stock I have included here gives additional nods to the past, present and future of the railways, really completing my target theme and scene. Visually, I am really happy with this and what I've been able to pull off in such a small space. The cliff, with all its emerging, embedded railway artefact, is as grandiose and evocative as can be with what height I had to play with, especially now it's textured, weathered and covered in detail. You can really feel the depth of time with the modern liveried Class 66 out on the tracks, even though there is only about a foot of distance to play with. As well as being impressive on a large scale, I do think all the tiny additions really help sell this concept. I love the little buffer toadstools and plant-like vacuum pipes, and the derelict brake van, now surrounded by shrubbery, looks truly owned by nature again. The signal tree is a great tall feature, and I do think having this alone, without the coupling rod tree to compete with, was the right call. In the coupling rod tree's place is this sapling-like wheel on an axle, topped with some flowering plants. The dual gauge track has allowed me to mix and match rolling stock from different eras of the past, such as the pioneering and grouping eras, as well as with stock from the present and probably future on the running line. Nuclear power seems primed to grow, as will nuclear waste traffic on the railway network, and the Class 66 locomotives still have a lot of life and potential innovation left in them. Railway industries of the past and preservation pioneers and trailblazers are represented by the Welsh slate wagons and the Bachmann Taloclin, giving me a competition board that is broad, deep, well-rounded, purposeful and enigmatic of the railways in many shapes, forms and sizes. I've named this entry Times Gone By, and I think it lives up to it. So that is how everything came together, even if not quite as I hoped due to the judging criteria, but I still managed to get it finished and done to my satisfaction by the deadline, even if it was down to the wire. Peco will be revealing the winners in a few weeks' time, and also sending invitations to those modules they want to feature in their celebratory modular layout at roughly the same time. The modular entries that are lucky enough to be invited to be a part of that will be displayed at the National Festival of Railway Modelling, due to be held at the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham on the 22nd and 23rd of November, which is, well, when I'm recording this, literally a month away. Will I be invited with Times Gone By? I don't know, but we'll find out, and if so, you'll potentially have the chance to come and see it in person at the event. As soon as I find out, I will let you know, but for now, that's my entry in all of its miniature glory. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Have I managed to encompass all of the themes and different aspects of railways that I envisioned? And if you've entered the competition yourself, let me know what ideas you've come up with, and perhaps share some photos or videos of the modules that you've completed. This has been a fun challenge, but for me it's now back to my usual modelling schedule, focusing on the layout behind me, which I've somewhat neglected a little bit while I've been trying to meet Peco's September deadline. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Take care.